Professor Falcke, what are you doing every day in your scientific job?
I'm making pictures of black holes. That's my main occupation.
You did it.
We did it with a big team of 300 people worldwide. We make the first picture of a black hole.
Yeah, but are there more black holes then?
Oh, there are hundreds of billions of supermassive black holes in the universe, and just in our own galaxy we have hundreds of million little black holes. And there are probably more black holes in the universe than you have grains of sand on your favorite beach.
But why would you make more photographs of a black hole if you made one?
Well, in principle, if you know one, you know everything about a black hole.
That's
but then you need to know everything perfectly, and science never is perfect. You need to have multiple measurements to test different parts of the parameter space. We measured a supermassive one, which has 6 billion times the mass of the sun in the galaxy, 55 million light years away. And then we made a picture of a black hole, which is just 27,000 light years away, which is just the backyard of our galaxy.
You are famous of that one black hole, but you have made more now, I understand?
Well, we have two. We have only two. We actually see the darkness of the event horizon. But of course we know that there are thousands, millions, hundreds of millions black holes out there, hundreds of billions even, and they're just too far away. They are not bright enough, so you can't see everything.
Okay. Back to the topic, science and religion, Christian belief. Have you always been a Christian?
I was certainly raised as a Christian. I come from a Protestant family, which has been, I think, for generations in a Protestant church in a town near Cologne in Germany. So I certainly grew up with that concept, but it wasn't close to my heart all the time. It was something you had, you noticed, you took note of it, but it took a while until it became really something of my heart.
How did that occur?
Yeah, it's strange. I can't even describe it. It was just, I woke up one morning and literally I had the impression God is love, God is real.
At that morning? At that
morning, yeah. And it's, well, we had some church activity before, but it was not very special compared to anything I've done before. And it was just not, and it was just this idea God could be real and God is love. It was very strong. But I'm a scientist, I'm skeptical, so I started, investigating that feeling.
It was only psychology.
It was, totally. It could have been just psychology. And so that what you need to do is then, try that hypothesis.
Yeah,
right?
You did?
I did. I started to live as if God was real. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And it worked?
And it actually was surprising. It really changed my life because it changed my perspective. And
it was at the time that before you became a student?
It was a time, probably was 15 or something like that age. That's when I started actually to be interested in science, to ask deep questions. I was always the curious kid, and I was also a bit nerdy, I must say. I was doing my little experiments in the backyard. I was building rockets secretly, which was not.
When you were 15 years old.
Yeah. So I mixed my own black powder and built a rocket, which I do not really recommend anybody to do because it really is dangerous. And I was stupid to do it, but I was just a curious little kid to play around. And I got my first computer. I was just programming computer all the time. So I really was a nerd at the time.
Then you became a student.
Yes.
Astrophysica, I suppose. Or
astrophysics. Yes.
Astrophysics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no physics. It was physics.
Only physics. No astrophysics.
I wanted to work on fundamental questions. And I was, intrigued by particle physics, which was going really to the little particles and what's the foundation of matter. And that was a big physics of the last century. But I also realized that astrophysics is just taking off. There's so much to be discovered, new telescopes coming online. Like black holes, it was just a mathematical concept. Do they really exist?
But did you get tough questions as a student? About the universe, for instance?
No,
or about all those questions students have?
No, actually not. We were just studying physics. How do things work?
No astrophysics.
But
no astronomy.
In astronomy, no, we talk about how stars work, how the universe evolved. Even that was a bit unclear at the time still. So we're talking about physics. So the deep questions we didn't really discuss a lot during my studies, I must say. And I think that's
And you didn't get them?
we didn't get the questions from,
No?
at least not from
No.
the professors or anywhere.
And to you,
Myself?
personal? Yeah.
No, I've always been interested by these questions, right? So I've asked them to myself.
Yeah.
But that was because I was, a Christian and a physicist at the same time. I was developing. had all these questions, and I was debating them with my friends and with people in our church, maybe sometimes with students. But it's not something that was, asked. I wasn't asked this by my professors.
No. But by your heart.
By my heart, of course. Because as I said, I'm a curious kid. I always want to know.
Yeah.
So where do things come from? There's a black hole. There's a Big Bang. Okay, fine. Where does a Big Bang come from? And all these questions.
Yeah.
How big is the universe? We know it has a certain.
Rather big.
There's a certain size that we can measure. But what's beyond that?
Yeah.
And is what's beyond that? Is that infinite, or is there a limit to it?
Yeah. And where is God in that?
And where is God in this whole thing? And is there a God? And all these questions. And if there's a God, what is God? And how does it he or she interact with?
And
with
how
the
did you get the answers then?
If I would claim I have the definitive answer of all of this,
The answer.
now I would get the Theology Nobel Prize, I guess.
The answer, where is God in that big universe? That infinite universe, maybe.
Yes. No, I think for some reasons God never felt far away in all of this.
To you?
To me, yeah. Even the bigger the universe got, the closer actually God became to some degree. Because, and that maybe is just intuition, but the intuitive feeling is that God is at the beginning of everything. That is the source of everything.
How do you know?
No, I don't.
Don't?
I can't. I mean, this is, well, let me back up. I think that if you think and ask through, you always have to start with something, right? There's no physical cosmology that doesn't start with prior assumptions, with prior existence of something, be it just natural laws, be it just some quantum fluctuations, but there's always something. So there's always your first cause. Even if some people say, oh, they don't have one, but they still have one, implicitly. So you always have your God. You always have a picture of what is first. And
that can be no God.
And that could be a God which is just a very mechanical God.
For instance?
So,
to understand?
Well, it's a concept. It's a philosophical concept. If you just consider, God is the first cause.
You do.
Well, I think that is a philosophical concept.
Yeah?
I mean, if it's just a definition.
Yeah.
Just a definition, okay? So there is a first cause. I call that God. Now, is that God someone or just something? That is another question. It's a question of who or what is God. This is not the question of whether there's a God or not. I think everybody has their own God, has their own picture of what the first
Cause.
The first cause is. Yes. And even if you say there is none, as I said, there is still some concept of first cause that you have in this hidden.
Yeah. And how do you know that first cause is the God of the Bible?
Well, and again, this is a choice you at some point make. That if you for example, I was reading the Bible, and I was, and the Bible, what is the Bible to me? The Bible is, a collection of experiences of people throughout the generations with this God, with the world, and what they experience as God.
They experience as God.
What they experience as God.
It's not God, it's their experience.
It's their experience of God that we read about in the Bible. And then I can see, can I relate to this? Can I understand that? Do I find the same kind of God, the same experiences? And does that God, that concept of God, let's call it the concept of God, does that actually affect my life today? And you experience, yes, it does.
So the evidence is the effect on your personal life.
The effect is, I'm the experiment.
That the evidence?
I'm the personal experiment, yes. Because, yes. Because if you talk about sort of that first cause, which is not, where you're by definition not able to describe it with just with physics. We cannot go there with a telescope and look at God at the first concept, at the first cause. We cannot even extrapolate our natural laws to this first cause because they just break down. So there is no way for us as physicists to know what the first cause is, ever. So you have to, put a picture there, an image of God, and then you have to. The question is, does that image, what I place there, is my picture of God, my experience of God, does it affect my life today?
Yeah.
And that's what people in the Bible describe, that what they experience as God, as a personal God,
But that can be psychology, can't it?
Yeah, but we're all psychology, we are, and our experiences are not completely arbitrary.
No.
And in fact, yes, and if you are the only one who experienced something, then
okay.
I think
I can see. I can understand.
But if there's a collective experience of people that's actually, in a way, reproducible, then I would say, as a scientist, there's a good evidence that God is more than just a fantasy.
But if, to your opinion, the universe is about 13 billion years old, I suppose.
13.85, something like that.
13.85 billion years.
Yeah. The 0.5 is still a bit uncertain. The 8.5 is still...
You are a scientist. What a waste of time and energy and life for a God, a concept, a first cause, to make that big universe, only to make humankind like you and me here now in this world. Why should a God do that? Is the main question of all the criticizers of.
I don't find this a very convincing criticism. I mean, this is splendor.
Why not?
And if you think about of the concept of God, who is a little bit bigger than you are, then that little bit can be enormously bigger. Right, and
why a world?
So if I say, give you an example, if I say we image this black hole at 55 million light years away, the light took 55 million years to reach us, that we measure. People say, oh, it's so distant, it's so far. But to an astronomer, this is really nearby.
Yeah, it's nearby.
I'm used to a universe which is billions of light years big, and this is my daily life. And to me, this is not that big. We even talk about multiple universes. Maybe it could be multiple universes.
Yeah, I know.
And so it's just because we think small, but I think if you were truly God, this is just little bits and pieces.
But why should he do that? Why should he?
Because he can.
Why should he make
and
maybe many universes only to create humankind?
Because humans are special. If you look at all the stars and this dust which is out there, they cannot think, they cannot wonder, they cannot believe even. And we can do this. So we have something in us that makes us very different from all the stars and all the matter out there, from this table, from this water that's there. We consist of exactly the same matter. There is nothing different in us that's not also in here. It's protons, neutrons, electrons. That's more or less it. Yes, we wonder about the universe. We marvel about it. We can think about it. We can understand natural laws. In fact, all these protons here, they have no concept of natural laws. They behave according to the natural laws, but they have no concept of them. We understand it. And so I think there is something special in us, which is not based on the fact that we are, big or matter. It's just about what's in us. It's this personality. It's this sense of purpose. It's this it's love, hope, and faith that's in us. And so then you can think about, okay, is it something that we invented? Yeah, or is this just reflecting what was there in the beginning?
Yeah,
and that's something you cannot answer again with science because we can't even measure the beginning. But that's how I look towards the beginning of the universe. That I just reflect something that was there.
So to you, it is not a tough question.
No, I actually
the waste of energy and the waste of energy, the waste of time, the waste of life before humankind came into being.
And I think it's just ingenious. right? So I mean, I was discussing it recently with someone. You know, if you...
You know those questions.
Yeah, I know. We were discussing actually with a physics PhD student. I was discussing that actually from California. We were sitting there talking about the universe. And I was thinking, you know, you can think of the creator as someone who just, craftfully models, one person. You know, that's how an artist would make a statue, right? But to a physicist, that's not beauty. For a physicist, if you have this one ingenious equation, out of which everything follows. This one word. Out of which everything else develops and comes into being. Yeah. It's simple, it's easy, it's beauty. And so, to me, as a physicist, beauty is very different from a beauty of an artist. Yeah. So, a God that fiddles around with all kinds of things and creates humans is, okay, that's how we would do things, but it's someone who has, is doing it, is a job badly done. But, an equation or a word that, creates all of this is so much more beautiful. So I think it's a question how you look at it.
Sure, because on the other hand, some people say, some scientists as well, there is a kind of evidence for what you have said. For instance, the fine-tuning of that big universe. So there is a kind of evidence for the existence of God. What do you say?
I think it's a big puzzle. It's a big mystery.
What is the mystery?
That, in fact, there is life at all in this universe. If you look at the cosmological evolution, if you look at the parameters which are out there that govern the evolution of stars, of galaxies, and of life in general, the fact that this came out in such a way that we are here today is just marvelous. It's fantastic. It's very unusual. In fact, it might have been even more likely to create something out of complete chaos to get to this point than going through all this complicated evolution of a universe with all these parameters and then coming out in the right way. So I think in physics, this is a big question. Why do we have a universe that actually works? Now, of course, there's a simple answer to it because that's the only one that we can observe, so we wouldn't be able to live in any other one. Still, what kind of system, leads to such a situation at all? It could have been completely impossible. Why are we here? And physics cannot answer this question. But also, you cannot say, okay, this is proof for God.
No, not that we are here, but fine-tuning of the universe?
Fine-tuning of the universe is, there's something is fine-tuned. We are living in a narrow parameter space, and for some reason that was possible. And for some reason in the Big Bang, the universe that we see today with life was possible. So it was clear in the beginning of the universe that would have been possible at the end. But is that proof of a creator?
No, I don't use the word proof.
Evidence.
Evidence.
Now, it's something you can marvel at, and it's something that asks you a question. Yeah, but it's a question that you will not be able to answer with science.
It is not slight evidence.
Well, it's something that should make you wonder.
No evidence. No.
Now, evidence is when you have like 3 sigma, so it goes towards a proof or something like that. So, but this is something where you can't put an error bar to it.
I see.
So that's why you cannot. But it's something that where as a scientist, there is a point where I need to ask a question. There's something where my current physics can't give me the complete answer, and there's something I can discover something completely new.
So you can't see God acting in this world or God acting in this universe. You only can see God acting in your personal life?
Well, the problem is, how do you prove that? Right? So nobody has ever come up with a convincing experiment to prove, okay, that is God acting in the universe. Especially, let's talk about natural laws, right?
Yeah, the natural law. If I here, this is
exactly.
This is a natural law.
Let it fall down.
Okay.
Yes.
What would be?
It will likely fall down.
I think so. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. There could have been a bird coming by, picking it up before it fell down, but the chance is very unlikely.
It could not be upstairs.
It's, well, according to quantum physics, there is an almost...
Oh, no. No, that's too difficult. Okay, a natural law. Oh,
Yes.
There it goes. Yes.
There you expect, according to natural laws, that it falls down, but then you fumble and actually go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so the future of your future, the future of the material world, is never exactly predictable.
Even...
Well, I mean, if you very narrow it down to a very simple experiment, you can, but then it becomes more and more complex.
Yeah.
And every physicist that tries an experiment will tell you that there's always been the case where the experiment went wrong because suddenly a cat walked into the door and changed things or whatnot. So yes, isolated systems function according to the natural laws, and you can predict more or less statistically on average what happens. Yeah. But you cannot predict your own future or the future of the world or even the future of the universe in detail ever. And natural laws don't mean that everything is predetermined. And natural laws don't also mean this has nothing to do with God. Because to me, the fact that there's order in the universe, that there are natural laws, is actually God's word as well, is God as well. I mean, that's part of God.
That's evident. If you can use another word.
It could be. You could see this as an evidence for God if you want.
I ask you. If you were telling that there was something about God in the universe and in your personal life.
Yeah, no. I think in my Christian view, right, the laws of nature are also part of creation. It's part of God's word. And so when I measure and study natural laws, I also study something about God. I study God's word to some degree, as I study the Bible.
That's Christian belief. That's only Christian belief.
That is Christian. That's how I look at the world as a Christian.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't think it's a totally crazy idea. I find.
To your colleagues, sometimes.
No, because it allows me to actually ask questions that go further than just... why is this, what law governs, why is this pen falls down?
Yeah.
I also need to think about what's my purpose in life, why do I care actually about the natural laws at all? Why am I curious? And I think it's sort of, something instilled into me that I'm supposed to be curious, that I'm supposed to ask questions. And that's something that reflects, as I said, the Creator and the origin of us.
So science is a duty of Christians?
I think we have different talents. I think so. There's a nice story in the Bible that that we need to deal with our talents. And if you dig your talents underground and don't use them, you're actually
out. You're out.
Well, you're not doing what God wants you to do. So use your talents, and whatever you do it as good as you can. And scientists' job is to understand the creation. And not how we think they are, but how God made them, how nature is. Right? And the creation and nature tells us how it is. We don't need to interpret it. We can measure it. Yeah. We can, of course, we write down then interpretive laws, but they need to describe nature as it is. And so we need to listen to nature, and to me this is listening to God as well. And you honor God, I think, talking to Christians, you honor God not by saying something that you think is the truth. You honor him or her by because let's talk about this. By actually doing science as good as you can. Using your talents and looking for the truth that is evident in nature.
Yeah. So science could be a Christian duty.
I think it is. It has been for a long time in history. It has been a Christian duty for some who had the talents and the passion to do it. Yep. And it still should be.
Yeah. Sometimes Christian parents are afraid of their kids going to university and studying astronomy or astrophysics or physics.
Yeah, but
do you understand?
Yeah, but how can studying God's creation lead you away from God?
Maybe it occurs.
Yes, but maybe then something was wrong in your belief because you were maybe too narrow-minded. You had a view of the world which was too small because God was much bigger than you could even think about. Yeah. And that's one thing we can learn from science, is be very critical of ourselves. Because, and we see this also in the church. People have certain ideas how the church should be, or what you should be doing, and what should be the truth. And sometimes they can be wrong. And they can be terribly wrong. And history has shown this over and over again. We need to be very critical of ourselves as a church, as Christians, and be corrected. Sometimes in our lives, God needs to correct things that we do. And science is not different. Nature, creation corrects us. And that's like God correcting our view, which sometimes is too small, too narrow. We're looking in one direction, but God actually is much bigger.
Yeah, 13.85
yeah,
billion years.
And Job already says, the age of God you can't count. I mean, it's just enormous.
Well, he didn't know anything about billion of years.
No, but we had intuitively, I think, the feeling that there is much more and a much larger number. Maybe. As did some of the other prophets who say, look up at the stars, which is an uncountable number, essentially, and a host of up there, which was much more than you could see with your naked eye. Yeah. So if you look into the Bible, I think there is a sense of largeness, of size, of awe, which transcends all that we can just see with our naked eye. Yeah.
What would you say to Christian students doubting Christian belief, for instance, at university?
Now, I think there's certainly, it's good to doubt sometimes. Yeah? Right? Because, I mean, you learn something in your life and you realize life is slightly different. So, accept this. And
not be afraid?
And, it can be a scary, experience. Yeah. But in the end, trust God.
But if you are... if you don't believe God anymore, how can you trust a being?
God is a relation, right? And sometimes relations can be difficult, right? So sometimes you can be distant in a relation. And... but I think that longing for God, that longing for a home, is always in us, and even if there are things which you were told as a Christian, that's exactly how God is, and you realize at university that's not exactly how God is, then just embrace this and realize God is bigger than what you have been told. But the one thing that is so crucial is that still God is love. God will be with you, even if you doubt Him. There is, talk with Him, and discuss, and don't throw out everything. I mean, that's with every big theory, right? We've like in physics, we've realized like there was a theory of gravity by Newton, okay. It was great. It was a great theory, but then you realize it doesn't explain everything. You needed the theory of Albert Einstein of general relativity, and it was doing much better. But it didn't completely say it's all wrong what Newton did. And we know that even Einstein's theory cannot be completely right. There got to be some extra things, but it doesn't mean that all the theory of Einstein is wrong. You will learn more.
And can you learn about God, doubting all those questions, Newton and Einstein, and the big universe, and the 13.85 billion years, and the waste of energy, and the waste of time, and all those big questions as a student?
Well, the basic thing is, it all had its origin with one creator, and the belief is it's a good God, and it's one that actually wants you to be here and wants you to ask questions. This is the basic. Everything else will come from that. It's there's a certain level of trust you have to have in the basic relation, and then the details, how it works. You learn, and if you do not continuously learn about God in your entire life, there's something wrong. Your picture of God will change as you age, and it will become maybe more critical at some point in your life, and I suspect at some point in your life it will become more childlike again.
And to you?
Both happens at the same time, I think, yes. I think in the end, all that holds me is this, yes, that God spoke to me.
When you were 15 years old.
When he was 15 years old, and that he still speaks, I think, every day. And that's something I rely on. And I know in the end, I know nothing. And, I will, sometimes I'll be with the Lord, and I'll be able to ask all the questions I still have. Until then, I'll just, try to ask the little questions I can answer.
Okay. Thank you for all those answers, Professor Falcke. Join us for more information on Search for Truth at Learn with 3n.com. That's Search for Truth at learn.com. And you can also have a private mentor. If you look at Search for Truth at learn.com, you can get that private mentor answering not all your questions, but answering maybe a lot of questions. So again, Search for Truth at learn.com. Thank you for watching us, and thank you.